Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert here with Brother Rowe, coming to you at the Toronto Film Festival, and it's time to review Women Talking, directed by Sarah Polley. The movie follows a series of meetings in a Mennonite religious colony where women gather to discuss what they should do in response to repeated acts of sexual violence committed by the men in the colony.
Now, from the premise, I wasn't sure if I should expect a total chamber piece, and it's not that dissimilar from something like One Night in Miami, but it does have more range in terms of the locations it's using, and it doesn't feel like that confined to one space, although most of the time it is in this one barn. It took me a little bit to get into the movie, like maybe just the first act to adjust and to see if I was really going to be invested, because based on the premise, you can kind of guess like where it's going to go. You can kind of assume a couple characters that we might have in their positions, and we certainly do have those characters, and we do hear their points of view stated very strongly. But then I was surprised because this movie has layers of nuance and exploration that I didn't expect it to go into. The thing that surprised me about the movie was its perspective on men and its empathy towards boys. And this aspect I think is really important because it prevents the movie from being one-dimensional, where you could just have women speaking about the ways in which the men harm them in their lives, and they could do that for hours. And it is due to how masculinity is bred within the colony. But of course, the other dimension of that is that they may have to be the ones to reckon with how to raise boys for the next generation. And then there's a character played by Ben Whishaw, whose role is to transcribe what the women say for the rest of the colony. And he must do this because the women are not taught to read and write. And this character is also one where it started out, I wasn't sure what to make of this. I wasn't sure if he was too like teddy bearified. But once you really get down to his desire, I was really attached to his story and how it connects with Rooney Mara's character in the film. It's where it roped me in, and then it's also where it made me perhaps shed some tears. And I don't know if people will have that same endpoint as me, because maybe it's because I'm a man, I don't know. But regardless, this was a really beautiful and empathetic portrayal of men and women.
I just found this movie to be very wise, well thought out, carefully crafted. Like, there are a lot of ways that people might be concerned about how this movie deals with such traumatic events. And I feel like not a lot of people are going to end up being upset with how this movie deals with that. And it also manages to not feel overly heavy. It is heavy, but I think there's room for hope, and you even leave the movie kind of looking towards the future. You'll find yourself having a conversation with yourself in this movie as well, because in the women trying to decide if they should stay in the colony and fight or to leave, you'll find yourself listening very attentively to like the movie's pros and cons and trying to decipher that for yourself. It was interesting to see how the characters were grappling with their faith in God in all of this, and how and if they should forgive the men. It was just interesting to watch these characters who may have very similar values but have different perspectives and different backgrounds try to come together and decide what's best.
The script for this movie I thought was really outstanding. There are a lot of one-liners that get to the heart of the conflict and get to something deeper that really just hit me in the chest.
Makes you want to pause the movie and just let them sink in.
The script doesn't let any one character fall too heavily into their own ways. They're all challenged. And another thing I really appreciated from Sarah Polley's direction was some of the cutaway scenes were very poetic. And even while there's narration over this, it almost felt like Terrence Malick at times, just with the gorgeous cinematography and portrayal of like innocence and boys. And those parts of the film that really deeply impacted me and felt very cinematic in a film where there is a lot of talking and it is often in one place. I also thought the cinematography was a high point, with maybe one exception. But first, I would want to praise that I thought the lighting was gorgeous. It did a great job capturing the emotion in the characters' eyes as they're delivering some of their most powerful moments. And again, when there are scenes outside of the bar, the cinematography is very evocative. It could have felt more flat and like a play, and it doesn't, and that's thanks to Sarah Polley's direction.
There is one visual choice that I just cannot fucking stand, though, and it is not the same as the cinematography. It's the color grading is a huge no-no for me in this movie. The image released from it is how this movie should look, and how this movie looks is like desaturated, overly shadowy, like Clint Eastwood ass. This actually made it tough for me to get into the movie because I was like, really? And again, what they captured in camera with the lighting, it looks good. Like, what was in the camera was probably gorgeous.
Yeah, and you could even see, despite how desaturated it was, that there was some really evocative use of color. If they just let those colors out more, nothing would have been taken away in this film. The only thing that's taken away is when it feels like you're withholding color from the audience because you're trying to evoke something or make a point, but it's so obvious because we're made so aware of that choice that it takes us out of the movie. And there are just simply other ways that we could have felt the same exact thing.
If the choice is to show that the characters are like lacking color to some extent, something's been like sucked out of their lives due to these circumstances, like that's already in the movie enough. And I don't think that you need to tell us with an Instagram filter put over the whole movie. What do you want?
I think you could do what you just said by the way that the cinematography already contrasts the warm light with the cold light. There's a lot of like blue light in this film that enhances that desaturated quality, especially during the nighttime scenes. And there's also scenes that are lit with lanterns and with sunsets, and those feel a lot warmer, but I would have liked to feel that even more. And then there would have been this play of like warm and cold colors that existed, but was sort of drowned out of the film because of this color grade.
It just feels wrong. It just feels like this isn't like what the movie is supposed to be. It just looks like a weird flashback scene, or like a short film that's trying to be too dramatic, or like a music video, or just desaturate the whole thing, make it black and white. Like I would have preferred that.
But anyway, it's not that hard to get into the movie, and it didn't stop me from really liking this movie, if not loving it. We can talk about the performances now. You know, it's what you all want to know. It's such a big ensemble. Who's the standout? Well, we think Claire Foy and Jessie Buckley are the definite standouts here. I think Claire Foy's character, for me, was like the most front and center big performance, because she has like 2 monologues, and one of them is outstanding. Like, she completely nails it. And she's also the most inclined to take actions into her own hands. So that makes her a character that you identify with very early on, because the initial reaction you might feel is rage and anger.
Jessie Buckley was possibly my personal standout, even though many say Claire Foy. I just thought like everything she was doing on screen, I was like, yes, this is right. This is like the kind of performance that the movie needs. That character is very combative and confrontational, and the way that she clings to her initial stance in the movie, you end up like dissecting that a little bit, and that scene is really powerful. And those two are the ones that people are saying are getting nominated for supporting actress, and I like kind of agree that they will probably both be nominated, because it seems people aren't going to be able to like single one out. Like, I don't know how you'd form a consensus around that, but I actually think Rooney Mara is on par with these two. Her character doesn't do as much shouting and crying, and of course that's why she's less in the conversation. But she has like this wide-eyed optimism in her character, which you'd think doesn't make sense in this world, but you do buy it from her. And she has some incredibly sweet moments with Ben Whishaw. I thought she was just as good as the others.
I agree 100%. The entire ensemble is great. I don't want to like name every single person, but you know, both of the elders in the barn were amazing, and the younger actors were also incredible. Like the girl with the glasses felt very real to me. Like there's not a weak link here. And by the way, Frances McDormand is not in this movie a lot. She's like basically a cameo, and that's it. Like there's not going to be any awards hype there. And then there's really only one performance from a man in this film, that is Ben Wishaw's. And this is the one that surprised me the most, because I expected Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley to be great. I haven't seen Ben Whishaw in that many films. And by the end, I was honestly blown away by his performance. Because again, this is a character that really brought me in. He's this vulnerable creature who desires love, but doesn't want to put himself first and wants to make himself small. And Ben Whishaw had a lot to play with what this character was grappling with. And he was just outstanding. Like, I think he will definitely be nominated.
Yeah, I think he was as good as anybody else in the cast. You know, he does do a lot of crying. You probably want to know that, because Oscars, he does a lot of
He has a lot of scenes. He has a lot of material, and he stands out on the fact that he's the only man in the room alone.
I literally came out of this movie like, he's going to get nominated, and he's going to be nominated everywhere, and it like has to happen, and he could even be like number 2 or something like really high.
Hopefully other people feel the same way.
Overall, there's just so many fascinating conversations and debates in this movie that will get you thinking deeply about the world that we live in. I just think it's a very valuable movie that I'm going to come back to. You know, I think we got a major awards contender on our hands here. I think we might get 3 acting nominations in the supporting categories. This is winning screenplay, as it should.
Yeah, it definitely should.
It'll get picture director nominated. Could win SAG ensemble. That would be very deserved. And if you have some of those ingredients, you do think it could win picture. I guess I'm not like convinced that this is like far and away the movie that's winning best picture or anything. I just think that it is a movie that could do it.
This could win. I think this has to be like your one or two. There's not that many movies that I say, you know, oh, this can actually win.
It also will get an editing nomination.
Yeah, I think
so. And the score was great.
So I think the score was great and it will get nominated. But I do think they used the same theme like every single time they wanted to have music. And I wish they broke it up a little bit.
I think the score is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I think that like the quality and the texture of the string instruments and the percussion, like the bells, it doesn't feel like you just, you know, wheeled out whatever instruments were laying around in the orchestra. It feels like they were somehow like modified or made to have a little bit more of like a rusty quality or something. Like something that maybe Johnny Greenwood would like. It's going to be one of those pieces of music that people use like a lot.
Oh, you mean like film school stuff or like trailer music? Yeah, maybe. I think cinematography is possible, but I do think the color grade might hold it back from that nomination.
I would love them to send it back, get the person who colored Power of the Dog on this, and then put it back.
Yeah, I thought this was great. Probably be one of my favorite Best Picture nominees of the year. It gives us a strong 9 out of 10.
I'm going 9 out of 10 as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Which women would you like to see talking?